Welcome, welcome to episode 13 of the Decatur Dish, the show about all things DeKalb County. I'm your host, editor, and publisher Dan Whisenhunt. I edit and publish Decaturish.com, a local news website based in Decatur, Georgia. This is Black History Month. Today's episode we're celebrating Black excellence and talking with local journalist and commentator King Williams. King, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Cannot complain. Thank you so much for joining us again. Now, the last time we talked, there was a snow day or something, so we did that via Zoom. So we decided we wanted to do something a little more in person today. So thank you for coming out to the studio. If you're just joining us, every week we get together on Atlanta News First to talk about all the latest headlines in Decatur and DeKalb County and what's going on in Decaturish. But because it's Black History Month, we're doing a little bit of a pivot this month, and we're talking about some of the notable figures in Black history in Atlanta. And I want to jump into it by talking about Alonzo Herndon. King, who is Alonzo Herndon for the viewers who don't know about him?
Yeah, Alonzo Herndon is one of Atlanta's true great historic figures. He is Atlanta's first black millionaire. He actually became a millionaire twice. The first was through his franchise of barbershops that he had in Atlanta that existed prior to the 1906 race massacre. And afterwards, he actually got into the insurance business, founding the Atlanta Life Insurance Company. That allowed him to be a second-time millionaire in Atlanta, and more importantly, underwrite a lot of the businesses in Atlanta that had been destroyed in the 1906 massacre, as well as provide a new financial base for businesses in Atlanta.
And he narrowly escaped the massacre, if I remember reading that correctly. I think he had actually gone home for the day, but there was a barber across the street who had died in that event.
Yes.
So, yeah, very unfortunate part of Atlanta history, but still something that's important to talk about. Talk to us about Alonzo Herndon Stadium. What is it? Where is it? How did that come to be?
Yeah, so Alonzo Herndon Stadium is on the campus of Morris Brown College. Morris Brown College was one of our many HBCUs that we have here in Atlanta, and more specifically, it's one of the HBCUs that's recently received its accreditation back and has been in the process of redeveloping itself. The site has been mostly languishing since the early 2000s as the school closed down, but it is a monument to Herndon, who was a donor of Morris Brown College, in particular the Hammons House, which is on the campus as well. And so the idea was to honor Herndon, who had really donated to the school by naming the stadium after him. But as of now, it's mostly known for TikTok videos of people going into an abandoned stadium flying their drone around. So it is a historic site, but it's one that needs a lot of love and care.
And it's been used, I think Ray Charles taped an album there. I think it's Ray Charles in Person, I believe I have the album title right. It was used, I believe, for field hockey in the Olympics. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, it was.
And so it's had some uses over the year. I think at one point it was even talked about as potentially or it was used for a minor league soccer team. So it's had some uses. What is the current state? You talked about the TikTok videos. Why has this fallen into such disrepair, given it's a historic landmark here in Atlanta?
Well, a lot of that has to do with Morris Brown College itself not being a university for the last 20 years. And so because it's not a university, it's not being used, and so the stadium just goes into disrepair. The interesting thing is that land is actually owned by Clark Atlanta University. Clark Atlanta is growing. It's one of our HBCUs, and it's growing in population. So there is a proposal right now to actually demolish the stadium and use that for more university-level housing. So there is a bit of back and forth right now. The idea is, should Clark just come in and retake over the stadium once again and then revamp it, or just tear it down and make it into student housing? So right now we're 50-50. We don't know what it's going to be, but it is one of those structures that we should keep in Atlanta.
What are the arguments for and against, if we could just talk about that a little bit more? What are the arguments for preserving it as a stadium, and what are the arguments for turning it into more university-level housing? And are there good arguments for both?
There's good arguments on both. On the Clark Atlanta side, one, we need more housing in general across Atlanta. In particular, we need more student housing, which is affordable housing for college students. And so that argument makes itself. The other one is for Morris Brown. This is Atlanta. We destroy everything for a Dunkin' Donuts or a parking lot, it seems, when it comes to historic structures. And so letting this once again be destroyed for, in this case, a really valid reason, is also missing the forest from the trees, right? This is a school that was founded in the 1800s, and we're talking a stadium that was built in the middle 1900s. As well. And so are we really going to do this away for more student housing, which is a need, but it is one of those things where we could do both, right? We could develop easily those housing units right next door in the surface parking lot, and we don't have to tear down the stadium. So there is a bit of like getting both things done.
Are there any other sites in Atlanta that commemorate and honor Alonzo Herndon and his family?
Believe it or not, actually, no. Despite him having such a profound impact on Atlanta, the one building that still remains is on Auburn Avenue right now, the Atlanta Life building that was actually taken over by Georgia State. And outside of a marker that was put there before Georgia State acquired it, there's not much to actually honor Alonzo Herndon on Auburn Avenue, on Peachtree Street, or on Morris Brown campus.
It's important to keep in mind as we talk about the potential redevelopment of this property, something I know King will be keeping an eye on. King, when people want to find your work, where's the best place to find your work? I know you do the I Am King Williams on Twitter. You're active there. You got the Substack. Are there other places people can locate your work?
Yeah, so I use primarily Substack, which is a platform, and so it's iamkingwilliams.substack. That's substack.com. You can reach me there if you would like to check out more of my work.
So switching gears a little bit, let's talk about black-owned coffee shops for a minute. I know you did an article about this for the Atlanta Voice. Talk to me about what gave you the idea for that article and how that article came together.
Well, I am a lover of coffee, and so coffee is my true passion in life. Once I leave journalism, I'm just going to be a full-time barista, maybe own a shop somewhere in DeKalb County. But I love coffee, and so every week I go to a new coffee shop in the Atlanta metro area, and I just happened to notice that there was a lot of black-owned coffee shops, so much so that Atlanta has the largest concentration of black-owned coffee shops in all of America, right? Metro Atlanta we're speaking of. And so I decided with the Atlanta Voice to rank the 25 best coffee shops at that point in time. And so I ranked the 25 best, and quite a few of them are in DeKalb County, and it's a place that I really love, and it's a passion that I really love to see other people get involved with.
So let's talk about how black-owned coffee shop is defined. How would you define it?
Yeah, so that's pretty simple. It's the ownership 51% better of people of African descent who own the coffee shop, and more specifically, not only in the ownership of it, is also the clientele, either black or is the clientele in particular of a mixed race.
Why are these places in particular important to Atlanta?
Well, coffee shops represent something that we've been missing broadly across the state of Georgia and the city of Atlanta, which is this notion of third spaces. Third spaces are places that are not home, which is the first place where you need to be at, or work, which is the second place. It's a place you go for leisure, for activity, for meeting up with people. And coffee shops, since they first were developed, have always been that source of a third place. And in a place like DeKalb and in Metro Atlanta, we are sorely lacking. And so coffee shops represent a place for people to congregate, and it's really great when you have local ownership in particular in Atlanta.
And King Williams actually had a great column that we published on Decaturish. You should Google it, King Williams Third Places, Decaturish. Check it out, where he talked a lot about this topic. It's really informative, really in-depth. What are some of the black-owned coffee shops in DeKalb County that are your favorites that people should check out?
Well, I would say actually go to Clarkston, because there's quite a few Ethiopian-based coffee shops. I think Desta is a really great place to go get coffee, but also just an introduction to Ethiopian food. There's also another one in Clarkston called Lambadina Kitchen. If you really want the sit-down service, you really want to learn about Ethiopian history and culture, I would say start there. Coffee as we know it. I actually started in Ethiopia, so you get that traditional service. You get to learn a lot about your Clarkston neighbors. But I will say the best coffee shop, which is also black-owned, which also happens to be in DeKalb County, is Gilly Brew Bar, located in Stone Mountain. It's in particular the Stone Mountain Village. It was actually built as the Stone Mountain Mayor's House 190 years ago. It was actually built by enslaved labor, and so now it's owned by a black couple, Daniel and Shalane Brown, who actually own the place. It's routinely cited in one of Georgia's best coffee shops and one of America's best coffee shops. They've actually been really good at fostering other coffee shops and other coffee concepts outside of the coffee shop. So meaning a lot of the baristas you meet at Gilly are also people who are into coffee, and so they're learning their own strategies and their own way to disseminate coffee. So I think if you really want a unique coffee experience, maybe the best in all of Atlanta, go to Gilly Brew Bar.
I think Gilly is actually temporarily closed for
Yes.
renovations. Do you know anything about what they're planning to do with that spot with the renovations? Have you talked to them recently?
Yeah, so the renovations are a couple months. They should be open later on this summer because the building is 190 years old. They're renovating a lot of the structure, just because when you have a building that old in particular, I think it's the second oldest building in Stone Mountain, you just have some repairs that need to be done. So right now, they're actually converting it into a full-on bar this time. So if you enjoy coffee, you enjoy alcohol, this will be a complete concept bar, meaning if you want craft cocktails, you want craft coffees, you can get those two things together, and that's part of the renovation.
One of the things that I was watching some videos of the Gillies, and they were talking about elixirs. What are the elixirs? Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so elixirs have been one of the most transformative things in just the broader Atlanta coffee scene. And so prior to Gillies' arrival in 2015 and 2016, most coffee shops, you had maybe your blended coffees like your Starbucks, in a blender, like your traditional cappuccino, frappuccinos kind of thing. What they've been doing is every single quarter, Gilly is known for their elixirs. So elixirs are their ability to remix coffee or tea. And so every 3 months they come up with a new idea on coffee and tea that never has been done. Usually they have to build their own equipment, they're on their own processes. And so when you go to Gilly, they usually prepare that drink in front of you and they don't repeat it. So we've had 8 years, and so you've had every single quarter you've had a brand new interpretation of coffee or tea. And so that's usually through the form of elixirs, which is why a lot of people believe they are one of the best coffee shops in America, because there are drinks that happen there at Gilly that other coffee shops, we're not going to say steal, but they borrow heavily across the metro Atlanta area. And also other coffee shops across America also are looking at what they're doing each and every quarter to kind of bring out something new.
So they are trendsetters, you might say.
They are the trendsetter, and they have been for the last 7 or 8 years. If you go to a coffee shop now and they have a specialty menu, they have a specialty drink. If you drunk coffee out of a pouch, if you there's certain things like cascara, which is the actual shell of the coffee bean, that comes from Gilly. Everything from like the mixed syrups and things like that, that also comes from Gilly. So they are trendsetters, and so there's a reason why, in particular, everyone goes to that little shop in DeKalb.
And it's right there in Stone Mountain, y'all. What are ways that the community, obviously going and shopping there is important, but what are other ways the community can support these important businesses?
Yeah, so like anything, your dollars always matters. One, I will say, for each and every coffee shop, right now a lot of coffee shops also have gift cards. So if you'd like to help the coffee shop, you can go usually to their website or go in person, buy a $10, $20 gift card. That goes a long way to help that business. If you don't drink coffee, also maybe drink a tea there. A lot of them also have pastries and things like that. But more importantly, if you go, a good review always helps, whether it be on Yelp or Google reviews. These things also help. Your social media posts about them really help as well. Each and every business needs a little bit of a handout and a little bit of a leg up. And so I do think that the easiest thing you can do is give a like if you want to help.
Well, King, if you're going to open your own coffee shop, I feel like I should go ahead and give you my resume in case the journalism thing doesn't work out. I think you'd be a good boss. I'd like to work for you, and I do like coffee as well, so maybe we could vibe together.
I think it'll work. I think it'll work.
Think it would work out. Pivoting a little bit, we're going to talk about black-owned restaurants for just a second.
Mm-hmm.
We recently had remind me of the fella's name, the TikToker who came out and did the reviews.
Keith Lee.
Keith Lee.
Yes.
So we talked about that in the last episode, and he kicked up a lot of controversy, which was funny because the reviews are very straightforward. They're not pretentious in any way. He's just one man giving you his honest take on restaurants and service. And what I really liked about his reviews is he went out of his way to avoid preferential treatment by these businesses, so he could actually give you an honest review of what was going on. So what did that series of interviews do to bring attention to black-owned restaurants in Atlanta and in DeKalb County?
Not during Black History Month. Oh my gosh. So I will say that when it comes to Keith Lee in particular, he's a TikTok influencer. More specifically, he is the biggest food reviewer on TikTok, period. The world's biggest social media platform. He is the biggest person in that food review space. And so what he does is he goes and he reviews only local mom and pop businesses. He does not review chain restaurants or whatever the big fancy restaurant in your town is. And so he came down to Atlanta in October for the One Music Festival, which is a festival that's already growing as well for R&B lovers out here. And so he's here, he's enjoying himself. He's taking recommendations from the crowd on where to go to. And so he goes to a few restaurants, and he does not have the greatest experience. And so that experience in particular was reflective of what a lot of people have been having in Atlanta. We call this phenomenon grass wall restaurants, meaning like you go, it's more trendy. It's usually from people not in Atlanta of any real time period. They come in and set up a business. They throw up a grass wall with a neon sign, and they tell you a Coke is going to be $7, right? And so a lot of people have been really, really upset the last couple of years. And so the recommendations to Keith Lee were for a lot of those grass wall restaurants. So I think he kind of saw in real time, I'm going to switch it up. And so you see towards the end of his trip, he had a lot more local businesses again. He had a really good time there. But this was really a way for a lot of people to kind of astroturf their complaints about the Atlanta restaurant scene right now, which is really trendy, which is really, unfortunately, like high price and not really delivering on the service or the food quality. And so Keith Lee just kind of had that review. And there has been nothing more transformative than the Keith Lee effect here in Atlanta. And unfortunately for a lot of businesses, it hasn't went well. A lot of people really feel like the Keith Lee effect was more important than having Michelin here. And so you kind of see that in real time, what Keith Lee's impact has been on these restaurants.
It didn't work out, but it worked out well for some other businesses, right?
Yeah, for the ones that really did work out well. There was one actually in Stone Mountain, a jerk chicken restaurant, Jamaican restaurant. And even now, like 4 months later, they still have routinely long lines for their lunch services. And so you look at what the impact is supposed to be to help out that small restaurant in DeKalb County, particularly, like that's what the Keith Lee effect is doing on the positive end. So we can't necessarily only focus on the negative. The positive is we have a restaurant now in Atlanta that's successful because of Keith Lee.
So we're following, I assume, the same definition of black-owned restaurants as we are black-owned coffee shops, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And can we restate that just real quick for the viewers who are just tuning in?
Yeah, so black-owned business in particular is at 51% more owned by people of African descent.
And what are the more well-known black-owned restaurants in Atlanta?
Okay, the ones that are not grass walls or the ones that
The
are
ones that are not grass walls.
Okay, so you have your traditional ones like your Busy Bee and your thing like that. Another new one that's come up that's also in the Michelin Guide, which is Bomb Biscuits, which is more of like the fast casual breakfasty brunch crowd. Those are two ones I always bring up when people want to try it out. And then right now, the restaurant scene, honestly, has really moved in particular around local entrepreneurs doing pop-ups and like setup spaces. So I think one to highlight is the brewery in Castleberry Hill, owned by Nappy Roots, Atlanta, Kentucky. They particularly have been using every month. They've been having a new restaurant, a new black-owned business, particularly food-based business, come through every single month and really try out their ideas. They're the same what Gilly was doing also in Stone Mountain, but they're also doing it now here in Castleberry Hills.
What are some of the ones in DeKalb County that people might know about?
The best one I would think, it's a small jerk chicken restaurant. It's actually in Ellenwood, and I'm drawing the blank. I think it's called, and I'm sorry if I got this wrong for you guys. They always have a line. It's small. It's on Boulder Crest Road. I think it's called the Fire Jerk Chicken, and it's on Boulder Crest. I think that's probably the one that's most known. A lot of them are chicken wing places right now.
We could throw a comment on the YouTube video later.
I am sorry.
No worries.
Ellenwood, that I forgot, but you really do have a big one. The other one's William Steak. That's another cheesesteak place, another black-owned business. That's all they do is cheesesteaks, and it's one of those kind of small, everyday person restaurants, but they have a loyal crowd, and they're really building out. I think they also now have a place in Ellenwood that they're building out as well, so you can kind of see those too.
What are some of the lesser-known places, maybe the places that didn't make the TikTok video or don't make the Michelin Guide that people should check out?
I would, in terms of the ones that don't make those, there is a really small one that I did like, and it was also out in Clarkson in particular. It was next to La Bandita. Actually, it was La Bandita itself, which is one, again, I reviewed it for my coffee one, but they also do Ethiopian traditional food. Most people do not go there. They don't know where it is. Like, it's just right there. It's right on the main road in Clarkson. So La Bandita, if you really want that, is a small black-owned business. I think it's really great. It just doesn't get a lot of love.
And why are these businesses important to Atlanta in particular?
Well, yeah, Metro Atlanta is around 35-40% black, and so when you talk about a place that has a business community, in particular a restaurant community, are these businesses viable, and do they have the infrastructure necessary to reach that viability? And a lot of times the answer is no, and a lot of it has to do with just awareness. And so one of the things that I'm glad that you allowed me to do through Decaturish and Atlanta Voice as well, which is highlight these businesses, because one thing they really do need is just awareness.
And what are, in addition to just going there and shopping and being a customer, what are the other ways the community can support them? Can corporations hire them to do catering? What are some other ways that we can be supportive of these businesses?
Yes, catering is always one. So catering is one of the best ways to do so. It's really a way to keep the price point up for a lot of these restaurants, coffee shops, and the such. The other one is, too, like if you are just, I say, where is your discretionary spending? So that $10 or $12 you would have spent at Chipotle or McDonald's, maybe spend it at that restaurant instead. Gift cards are another one, again, I want to reiterate, are a great way to do so. The other one is, too, like your lunches with your offices. So, like, scheduling out an office lunch at these places sometimes would be really great, or scheduling out that date night at these restaurants in particular. I think those will help out a lot.
Well, and that is our show for today. Again, I'm with King Williams. This is the Decatur Dish show. If you're watching us, you can find all of the news that we produce on Decaturish.com. If you want to sign up for our email list, that is at locallysourcednews.com. And to become a paying supporter, you can visit supportyourlocalnews.com. That's where you can sign up to become a subscriber. Another great way to support us is to download the Atlanta News First app. That's where you can get episodes of this show and other great content produced by our media partners at Atlanta News First. The app is free. It's a great way to support us, great way to support A&F. And King, real quick, let's remind people where they can go find your work as well.
I am kingwilliams.substack. That's substack.com.
And please, it's a quality follow both on Twitter. It's a quality sub on Substack. Always great commentary. We hope we can have you back on the show again soon. Hope we can get another column soon as well, talking about some of the cool things going on in Atlanta. Again, this was the Decatur Dish Show. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next Tuesday at 12:30.
All right.